So you had a question about where the installs are pretty much going, right? So
Yeah, I was trying to figure out, just like in case I decide to use an installation file so I don't mess anything up. But I was trying to understand, so you're we're only gonna be using that file with the sudo app commands when we're in our server, or can we use the npm and pip?
Can I try to answer this one? Just
sure,
to see
yeah,
if I got it right.
yeah.
So if you remember when we were on the AWS site and we picked the type of server we wanted, we chose Ubuntu.
Mhm.
So Ubuntu is like the operating system for that server.
Okay,
Sudo is the commands to control that operating system from the command line.
okay.
But we started with sudo, and one of the things we did was we actually did sudo install node.
Mhm.
Node gets us access to the npm commands, which we need because that's running through node.
Okay.
Pip is I'm pretty sure it's the keyword for Python specifically. If you're
Okay.
installing anything for Python libraries, that's like pip install Django.
Mhm.
So we're just adding each layer on as we go. We started the operating system layer with sudo, and then once we've got Python, or excuse me, once we've got node installed, then you can npm install the next layer and the next layer and the next layer.
Oh, okay, okay. I think I get it now.
And everything is running on our server. So the only difference is if we had our requirements.txt file, I would have to be in the correct folder in my code pretty much to access that file. And if I was doing npm install for the client, I would have to be in the same folder as my package.json. So those are the commands that you need to just be sure of. It's the ones that are using kind of like relative resources and not just installing things for generally for the computer.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay, so far we got pretty much everything installed. If you guys remember, we installed something called Nginx. So Nginx is going to be the engine that hosts our static files to the web. So Nginx, yeah, they have their documentation. We already installed it. So we do need to change a few configurations. Let me go into the configurations. So to go there, we have to access the folder etc. So there are a few three-letter folders that are built into Unix machines. So etc is a very common one. And let me show you guys what's in here. So here is just a bunch of packages that we have installed or have been installed for us. It holds a lot of information. But the one that we do care about is going to be Nginx, which should be right here. So there's a folder. I'm going to go into Nginx. And in here, there's a few things that we don't care about at the moment. The first file that we're going to look at is going to be the config file for Nginx. So I'm going to use Vim to edit this file. I'm going to use the sudo command because since this is a config file, it doesn't like you just changing it, so you have to have permissions. So sudo allows you to use your elevated permissions on a machine to run commands. So it's like running as administrator kind of in like a Windows machine. So okay, so I'm going to do sudo vim nginx config. I'm going to hit enter. So the only thing I need to change in this file, so this file is already written out for me. I just need to change this user. So by default, it's given a user called www-data, and I want to change this to be Ubuntu. That way, my user is allowed to get the calls, and we'll see what I mean, we won't really see the direct implications of this, but it will work. It won't give us like, you're not allowed to access these folders. Okay, so I'm gonna write and quit. It's gonna clear the screen. So I'm still in my Nginx folder. The next thing is going to be the second config file is going to be in a folder called sites enabled. Where is it? Sites enabled here. So I'm going to cd into sites enabled. Let's look at that. And there's only one file. It's default. So I'm going to do the same sudo vim default. Okay. So in the notes, there's exactly the code that needs to be inputted here. So here, our server, our Nginx server is going to listen on port 80. And then we are going to, let's see. We don't need this root. So this root is attached. Let me insert, okay. This root is attached to that other user, so we don't need that. Okay, I'm actually just going to copy the code from here. So there are two locations that our server should care about. I'm actually going to also delete this. Okay, so we have two locations that we care about. We have our, oops. Okay, so our first location is just the regular slash, and we want to pretty much when someone goes to the base URL, we want them to we want Nginx to pass that request down to port 9000. And then we're going to use another tool that will be listening in on port 9000 and giving Django the requests. So Nginx is going to be our intermediary between the internet and I guess Django, but it's the first kind of line of defense. It's going to take in our first HTTP request that we put in. So whenever we go to our website, Nginx is going to handle that request. So it will take it to port 9000. As for our static folders, we need to specify where our static folder lives. This is the name from a different project, so I'm going to remove that. Okay, so if I remember correctly, it was so my project name was called deployment demo, and then it's going to be at /server, and that's where my static folder lives. That's where my files live. So Nginx is going to be able to serve up my static files that have been built by Vite, by the Vite builder. Yeah, Chris.
Nginx is on the Ubuntu level.
Mhm.
That's a function of the operating system, right?
Yeah, no. So we had to install Nginx.
Nginx is a reverse proxy software piece of software.
Right. So from the internet, right, the user's gonna go to whatever the website address is,
Mhm.
and that's gonna, because the AWS server gives us the IP, it's gonna link that, I guess, HTTP address with that IP. So when it goes to that IP, it's then going to route to our local server that we created here. And Nginx that we installed using Ubuntu sudo is then going to say, send that to this proxy address using this static location, which is actually going to touch our program. Is that right?
Yes. I believe that was, yeah, I think I was
Okay.
following.
Well, it's recorded, so if it's wrong, we can correct it later.
Yes, exactly. Okay, I have 30 minutes left. Okay, I changed these. I think that is all for this setting. So we are going to, where's my cursor? Okay. I'm gonna write and quit. Okay, so that so now we set up Nginx to pretty much hand over to what's the word, relay our requests to port 90. So what we want to do is now use an application, use a tool called GUnicorn. And I'm going to need to install, you can install it using pip, so I'm going to do that. And GUnicorn is pretty much, I forgot how they describe it, Green Unicorn. It's a Python Whiskey HTTP server. So it's, we've seen this word before. We didn't really go into it, but it's the application, I forgot what Whiskey chain stand for. Yeah. Web server gateway interface. So that is basically what the Django application is. So this allows us to interface with the Django application and use the models that have been built and kind of modules that get built by Django to process the requests that are going to be sent to GUnicorn by Nginx. So let's install. So I can just pip install GUnicorn. Okay, I'm going to go back into my home folder / deployment demo. I hope I spelled everything correctly in the configurations. So sometimes you will have to restart your server. I think every time you change configs in for the Nginx, you will have to restart Nginx. So Nginx is a server that is running, and I forgot I think it's sudo service Nginx status, just so we can see if that works. Okay. So it's active and running. I am going to restart. So sudo service Nginx restart. So that way, I just want to make sure that it's still running. Okay, so it's the restart is pretty quick. But basically the restart allows the changes to apply. Okay, so we've done that. We have installed GUnicorn. I'm going to go into my server folder. Okay, so I'm going to go into my server folder, and then I'm going to run GUnicorn. Okay. And then I'm going to choose the whiskey file, the WSGI file. That is going to be inside of my server folder. So remember in our Django applications, we have an inner server folder. So in here, this is what we're trying to access. This is the file that has been created for us. It pretty much creates a module and uses the settings and pretty much makes an application out of it. And it's just a singular application that GUnicorn can use. So we're going to grab server.whiskey. I don't know if that's the correct way to say it, but it's fun to say. So I'm going to bind it to a port and it's going to be the same port that I told Nginx to relay requests to. And so if I run this, yes, I did misspell it, of course. Did I not? Okay, I think we need to use the sudo apt install instead of pip install. I think if we use pip install, we have to use Python to run it, but you can also just install it using the Linux or the application package manager. Okay, so now I'm gonna try this again. I'm gonna bind it. Okay, so now it's bound to that. We'll try to go. So we don't have our actual application domain bound. So now if it's running, we can go to our instances, we can grab our IP address, and we can try to go to that address. Oh, what? It's working? You guys don't understand how surprised I am that it's working. Okay, okay. Wild. Okay, so right now we are serving up our code and it is showing up here. So if we look at the inspector, you guys don't understand how happy I am. I spent like 2 hours this morning trying to figure out why it wasn't working. Okay. But yeah, so this is our actual application. And if I click, it works. It's being served on here. So here we notice it's still not secure. So we need to fix that real quick. And also we don't have our domain name attached to this. It's only an IP address. So let us, actually, do we have any questions before we look at the IP address and domain name?
Can you show the network tab?
Yeah.
Because we should be able to see some of that traffic going back and forth, at least a couple different places, right?
Yeah, so here we have a get. We have a get request. And then, so we're not going to see a lot of back and forth. We have just this this is doing a get request to this server at the base. And then Nginx is taking that and it is relaying it to port 9000 within that same server.
Which is the second line down on the, if you go back to the DOM, and you click that second line there.
Yeah.
Yep.
So no, this one is pulling the static files. So this is pulling the actual JavaScript from the static folder.
There was somewhere I saw a second ago where it actually showed the entire GET request with the full
Is it here?
URL. I wasn't sure what you'd click to show it.
Might have been here.
What's the bottom one
In this
on the
one?
left? Underneath, yeah, that one. That's weird. I don't know where it went.
Yeah. But yeah, so yes, when we're going here to the base, Nginx is taking that request, relaying it to port 9000, and we have GUnicorn listening in on port 9000 and pretty much relaying all the requests to the Django server that we have. And it's doing what it needs to do. So in our Django server, we have just one route, which is the base route, which is, so if I look at my files here in my views, I'm just grabbing the static HTML index and putting that in the response. Awesome. so glad this worked. Okay. Okay, let's get a domain. And then add that, and we should also we'll also set up our secure our HTTPS certificate, and then we will, or our SSL certificate, and then we will be done. Okay, so there's a few ways of there's different places where you can purchase domains from. Amazon has, so AWS has their own. If you go to Route 53, this is their domain, like their domain service. So you can look for a service. You can give me a domain name. Okay. I'm gonna say penguin.
www.ihateclowns.com.
I hate phones. What?
ihateclowns.com.
Oh, I hate clowns. I hate clowns.com. It's unavailable, but I don't clowns is available for $12 a year. I fear clowns.com. I think this one's a good one. I hate clowns with an H8. That's pretty good. So yes, you can, here you can choose your domain, you can purchase it. You pay once a year. I already have domains. I don't have them in AWS. I actually have them in Google domains. So I will show you. The process is basically the same. So when you have your domain, you just need to create something that I will show you. So I'll show you how to do it in Google domains. This is the domain that I have purchased a while back. You can go into DNS. So we want to set up the connection between the IP address and this domain, pretty much. So wherever you bought this from, you will have a DNS setting, and you will need to create a type of record. So I'm going to delete this one because I had created it a while back. Oh, I think it takes some time, but so basically I want to create a new record. An A-type record is going to match your domain. So messages.com. Oh, I think I don't need to put anything. So the base is messages.com. And then I can put an IP address, which is going to be the IP address for my server. So I just need to grab that again. Copy that over. Okay. I don't know what TTL stands for.
Time to leave.
Huh?
I think it's time to leave.
Time to leave. Okay. Does that setting matter to me right now? I actually don't know.
I think Yaz was making a joke.
Oh. Just completely went over my head. Okay.
Time to live. It was on that last page.
Time to lunch.
Time to lunch. Yes, I like the time to lunch. Okay, so type A records, you're mapping your host name, your domain name to an IP address. If I wanted to create a new one, if I wanted to create a CNAME, which is another popular one, you pretty much map like a domain extension or like a different domain name that will map to your current domain name. So the same way Google has domains.google.com, that is most likely a CNAME. That is most likely, I think CNAME stands for canonical name. So basically it's just kind of like an alias. So you can put, so if I add one here, I'm going to say, this is CNAME. I'm gonna say this is not good, but messages.com. Save. Add CNAME for the root domain. I think it's this one. I actually don't know how to create a CNAME properly. So we might need to. Oh no, that's. Okay, I think I figured it out. This is not important. I'm gonna just keep going with the demo so we can see the actual SSL stuff. So basically, wherever you have your domain, you can set up a DNS record. That way, when the DNS servers want to pretty much figure out where this IP address, like what the domain for this IP address is, or what IP address this domain is for, this is you setting up that connection pretty much. So now I have this connection here. I should be able to go to my site, not this one, the one that's here, and I should be able to say my, messages.com. Okay. I do believe it's because we are using HTTP and because we don't have HTTPS set up.
Didn't you spell it without the E as well?
Yes, I did. Okay. So HTTPS does not exist because we haven't set that up. Okay, so we do need to set up the HTTPS for this to be able to see it work. So let's go back and do this. You can run this in the background if you don't want to keep like stopping and turning on your server. So if you do that command with what was it, --daemon, you will be able to run it. But now to stop it, you have to actually find the process and kill the process using the process ID, which we can look at that later. Okay, so the last thing we need when we want to deploy the site is an SSL certificate. So, oops. So does anyone know what SSL stands for?
Secure socket layer.
Yes. What about TLS? I believe TLS is transfer layer secure or
I've
transfer.
seen the term, but I've never looked that one up.
So basically, TLS is the same functionality as an SSL, as SSL. The name was just changed because of like company ownership. So a lot of people still use SSL, even though technically all the current security like certificates are using TLS, like on the actual functional basis. So using HTTPS will encrypt our HTTP traffic, which prevents hackers from viewing or modifying pages as like if they're like accessing the data as the middleman. So if they somehow get access to a certain router and your information, it just happens to be passing through, they would be able to read your information if it is not encrypted. So yeah, so that will help us. It's not like the umbrella of all security. You still need a lot more security measures to add. And like I mentioned earlier, we also get these features. There's probably more when we're using a secure connection. Okay, so this will allow us to set up our HTTPS. There's a company called CertBot, and that's where we're going to get our certificate from. So this will basically allow us to get our site on HTTPS. That's pretty much it. It's very, very easy to use. You can say what software you're running on. So we're using Nginx. We are using Ubuntu, which we're using a later version, but this is okay. And then it tells you exactly what to do, which is great. So we're SSH into the server. Snapped is already installed onto our machines, so we don't need to install it. I think it helps with something. I'm not exact. I think it allows us to install the certificate. So we're gonna run this command. So actually I can run this one just to make sure that everything is up to date on my snap instance. So I'm gonna run this command here. Okay. Awesome, no updates available. And then I'm gonna go back. Let's see what's next. I'm gonna actually install the classic certbot. Awesome. And then we have to prepare it. So it just gives an alias, or I think either an alias or it just moves it. I forgot what ln is. But then our last command is going to be sudo certbot -- nginx. So it comes with like nginx type configurations built in. So all we have to do is run this command and it will go into our nginx configuration. I need to put an email for my certificate. So Platoon. And so basically, because we have this -- nginx, it will automatically go into the nginx configs and add the certification information that we would need. So would you be willing? No, I do not want to be on the mailing list. So we have to enter the domain name or names that we would like the certificate to be in. So I would have to say messages.com. It's also not with an E. I keep forgetting. Oops. Messages.com. And then it's requesting a certificate and it's going to automatically add it into our sites enabled default folder file, the config file. So let me real quick go into that to show you guys. So you can see nginx sites enabled and then default. So if we scroll all the way to the bottom, and here it added some lines. So it added server name. This is managed by certbot. So it added these lines of code. And then on the bottom, there's more information on the SSL. So above it was only listening on port 80 for HTTP traffic, but now it's going to be also listening on port 443 to manage HTTPS traffic. So I'm going to quit. And okay, so now I'm in my server. Since my config file changed, I will probably have to restart my Nginx server. So I'm going to do sudo service Nginx, restart. There we go. And I think that is it. I think so GUnicorn should be still running in the background. And let's test it out and hope it works. So HTTPS messages.com, and there we go. it worked. So now we have a secure connection. We're able to go to our domain and it shows us our website. Awesome. Icarus, yeah, you have a question.
Is certbot handling the incoming decryption on the HTTPS side?
I actually do not know. I don't even know what to look, so I'm just gonna look up decryption. Okay, maybe we'll, yeah, I can't get to an answer just from a quick,
All good. That might be like way outside of scope. I was just curious.
yeah, but good question, very good question. Any other questions? Explain
The
what
difference between HTTP and HTTPS doesn't change the request though, right? It's still a GET request looking for a specific either IP or route or whatever.
exactly.
It's just encrypted instead of or not encrypted.
Yes, that is the only difference between the two.
And if there was data passing forth between the front end and the back end, say a user was filling out a form or something,
Mhm.
it's just taking all that data and encrypting it before it's going back to the
Yeah.
server.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm just gonna run through like a quick one last time what this is doing. So we are connected to our server that is living in the AWS cloud, so on one of their machines. We installed all of our dependencies. We needed a bunch of tools that weren't installed on the server yet. We also installed our code that we wanted to serve. And we set up Nginx, which handles Nginx handles the requests that are coming from the internet onto our server. So if I didn't, does anyone remember the command to stop a process? Unix. I think I have to process grab unicorn. I'll have to look it up again. Okay, anyways, so I was gonna just demonstrate if you stopped GUnicorn, you will get I believe a 500 server error saying that there's nothing, like it would be an Nginx error. So it will say Nginx, I think 500 or 404, like basically it's not able to serve you any files because there's or it's not able to complete the request because it didn't receive a response. So Nginx is a middleman between the internet, so between our browser and GUnicorn. So all it's doing is it's taking in the requests that are coming into our into our IP address, and it is relaying it to a different port in our system, in our server. And then we have another process that is running, which is GUnicorn, which is listening in on that port 9000, and it is connecting whatever that request is to our Django application. And then our Django application is going to respond and then send that response back to what is it called? I believe Nginx, and then to the server, if not, sorry, into the browser. not directly. So Nginx is handling the serving of the static files. It knows where the static files are, and it doesn't really handle any of the Python stuff. GUnicorn handles that information. Yeah, and then the SSL certificate that we received basically allows us to register our domain name as a secure domain, and it enables us to encrypt our or it enables us to use HTTPS, which automatically encrypts and decrypts our information using our certificate. Darius Favicon, I think this is just, it was an icon or something that is in one of, it's in one of the files. I don't remember. I think it's in like the HTML file. Let's see, or maybe part of the style sheets. It just, yeah, I honestly don't know. I've seen it a lot. Favicon, oh, okay. Generate your favicon from text, images, emoji, hundreds of emojis. Okay, so I think you can just make an icon out of something. Yeah, I believe it's in, let me look at our code before. Probably in our client. Let's look at the HTML. Yeah, I'm not sure where exactly it's being put in, but yeah, we'll look into it later. It might be the React logo, but I removed the logos so I don't get any errors earlier, but I might have missed one. So main.jsx doesn't have anything in the app. Oh, maybe it's this. I mean, deleting it here won't really do anything. I would have to push it back up to GitHub. Okay. But yeah, any questions?
I put a blurb in chat. Is that accurate?
Let's see. So Nginx is the butler that answers the door when someone knocks. If the person knocking speaks to Python, GUnicorn is the translator that helps them find the right room in the house. Alternate, WeBrick is the translator that speaks. I don't know the Ruby on Rails part, but
I Googled it. I literally just Googled
Okay.
HTTP server for Ruby on Rails just to see what would
Oh,
show up. And that's
okay.
what I got. So it makes me think that GUnicorn and WeBrick are
Mhm.
like that interpreter for the language that your application is running in.
Mhm. Yes, so yes, so it relays the requests to the Django server. So that's all of them are going there. Django will then respond with either, so Django responds with, let me show you the code here. It's in the app, sorry. So here, Django is responding with a static folder or a static file. So that is what is being handled by Nginx. So Nginx knows the context of where the static files are, and it knows the responses and requests. So the responses that are coming back from Django, and it knows the requests that are coming in from the internet. So that is Nginx's role in the middle. GUnicorn is the one that relays that request from Nginx to Django and then back out. I don't know if I complicated it a little more.
I think it's the same logic. That makes sense.
Yeah. So one thing that I was running into this morning was, I kept getting an issue when it was loading these files. The JS file and my style sheet file, the ones that are compiled, it kept getting like an error MIME type, like I'll look up the error. It basically was not knowing where to find the static files. Yes, MIME type is not supported. That is the exact question, or the exact MIME type. Not supported. So I ran into this last cohort, and there was a fix if people were using Windows, but I mean the fix was just a general fix, and usually Windows people were running into the MIME type not supported, but then I was running into it on my Mac, and even though I was following all the same steps, so all I did was start a new project. And that is the project that we deployed. And that's why I was very surprised that it worked. So I honestly don't know how to fix it if you run into it. There is like adding a type. So adding what, like specifically what type of file this is in the sheet might help. Or in the settings.py, there's it's a bingo MIME type error. And you can put inside of your settings.py, you can import MIME types and then add a certain type, so you can specify a certain one. But this didn't work for me this morning, and I think it's worked before when I was using Windows. So that is just a warning, like that might happen. Yeah, that's all I have. Any last questions before I stop recording?